Hey, folks, welcome to InTheMoneyStocks.com's intraday analysis video, brought to you by the creators of proprietary price, pattern, and time methodology. Learn the PPT strategies and profit for life. Let's get this party started today on this Thursday, July 24th, 2014. Markets are mixed on the day. Dow is down a point, NASDAQ down 3.5 points, S&P up about 1.5 right now. And again, the markets have continued to bang against this little bit of resistance upsloping trend line. And again, if I zoom out, you can see very clearly you take the high from Tuesday, connected through the high of Wednesday, which connects to the exact high from this morning's opening candle, and it goes right through this pivot, which actually was a little topping tail right there. I actually picked up some Q's puts, the September 20th expirations right there when we were at the highs, and I actually made about a dime on 100 contracts, which, is $1,000. Not amazing, but I'll take it any day of the week, that's for sure. So bottom line is markets rolled over there, and again, all I did was utilized the fact that you had a topping tail here, and it was occurring right at this upsloping trend line. Upsloping trend lines, if you have a good degree, and we're dealing with, how many degrees is it, 50 degrees, 30 degrees, whatever it may be. If you have it at a good enough degree angle, it can be a great opportunity for you to make some money on the short side in this case. If it's downsloping, then on the long side when it hits. In any case, bottom line is markets had a beautiful rollover. Now they're bouncing back. Please notice how this 50 MA has established itself as a major trend line for this market. And you might say, well, how come? Well, look at this. On Tuesday, we hit it once. Wednesday we hit it twice, and then pierced it and closed below it on Wednesday afternoon, early afternoon right here. But notice how you never got confirmation below. And remember, if you don't have confirmation, very likely it will bounce back up. And sure enough, that's what happened. So we bounced back up, and essentially that means this level has held. Then we came back today. 3 times we pierced it, bouncing up, and we just closed below it, but again, no confirmation. So again, right now the 50 MA is the level to beat. Part of the issue that the market's having, the market you can see wants to sell off. All right, the cycle wants to take hold essentially, and you can see how weak the price action is. I mean, here we are with 32.5 million on the SPY in volume, and you're only up 14 cents. Nasdaq and Dow are negative. I mean, it shows you how weak the price action is right now, even though the markets are just holding on to the gains. But the point is, again, the reason why, in my opinion, the markets haven't rolled over yet is because the volume is so light. All right, when you do 32.5 million and it's almost 2 p.m. Eastern time, that's an issue. That's a problem that the markets are dealing with right now. Now, ultimately, that will fade away once the breakdown begins. It's not going to be stoppable because the volume will increase. But in the short term, as long as this volume's light, it will keep it in check. One little side note here, too. If you connect this low, you can kind of connect it right through these lows as well, and that kind of matches up. But I'm more interested in the 50 moving average. So that's where we sit right now. The markets, again, notice how you're making higher highs every day, but look at how weak the higher highs are. Here's a high. Slightly higher high, barely slightly higher, these aren't exactly breakout moves. And again, that's a signal you should be understanding, is showing that the market is on the weaker side. All right, so that's what we have going on here. I did pick up some other plays out there. I did some options today, and I told you about the Q's options, but those are in and out. Now I'm looking at some other options that I played, but those are more swing trading, so I'll reveal them to the members in the research center tonight in the daily analysis video. All right, so that's what we have going on here, guys. The market's, again, having a little bit of a bounce back. We're basically flat. If we look at the QQQ, take a look at the QQQ here. The Q's, you're just basically struggling here. You're below the 50. You've actually confirmed below these moving averages. But again, you need a little bit of a surge in volume to take this market down. You could look at this as a key break point right here. I would say you look for a break right through here, and you actually have a good chance to go to gap fill if you do that. So we'll be watching there. Interestingly enough, the dollar-yen is keeping this market afloat. If we bring up the dollar-yen, I mean, this is just a great chart because the dollar-yen is going up with a vengeance, and that keeps the market afloat. But usually when the dollar-yen rallies by this much, look at this. When the dollar-yen rallies by this much, it usually, and I got to punch it in right, that would be helpful. There we go. Usually the markets would be roaring today. All right, we've seen this comparison over the last 6 months to a year very easily, that when the dollar-yen rallies, then you see the markets go up, and when the dollar-yen falls, markets go down. But look at the rally today on the dollar-yen. From this low all the way up, and the markets are actually, the dollar-yen is actually at the highs of the day right now. And again, this is just another feather in your cap to understand how the markets are actually on their relative weak side. All right, because again, as I said, in history, if you go back a month and this same move was happening in the dollar yen, markets would be up on the spiders $1. You see the S&P up 10, 15 points. Easily. Easily. And again, if we flip back to the SPY, look at this. We're actually down ticking right now, barely up on the day. So to me, this is beginning to show some signs the cracks are continuing to form. You're still watching this upsloping trend line for confirmation. This is your end-all, be-all game right here. We get below this area right here, which is right around the 197.50 level on a closing basis. Then you look for confirmation. You get confirmation, then you look for the next thing. All right. What else do we have here? One stock that has earnings after the bell, guys. This is going to be an interesting one to watch. Is Baidu. Now, if you remember over the last few free videos, I gave you guys the max move level on this, and I told you it was 203 to 205. I said that's going to be the max out level on that. That should be the max out level. Well, guess what it hit today? What was the high of the day on Baidu? By the way, nice doji forming here. 205.50. Now, it reports earnings after the bell today. I'm not ballsy enough to short it myself into earnings just for that purpose alone. But if I was a betting man and more of a wagerer and a high-risk player, I would guess this falls on earnings. Now, again, I can't do it. It's because, remember, you can put, when you're dealing with earnings, you can put the odds in your favor by using PPT methodology, max moves, and this stuff quite a bit, but you're still taking on extra risk that you normally don't want as a trader. If you're a trader or an investor, you should be taking minimal risk with maximum reward. And this definitely, in dealing with Baidu, I mean, if it goes up, it could go up 20 bucks on you. And the question is that worth the risk? Now, to some people, maybe it is. To me, it's not, even though if I was a betting man, if I could put, a small amount. And again, some people would say, well, why don't you use options? Well, because the premiums on the options are ridiculous going into earnings. I was actually looking at the 200s on Baidu. The 200 expiration this Friday, the weeklies, are at they're charging you $4 right now just to get into them, and the stock's out of the money $4. So that means you'd have to get over an $8 move down on Baidu just to break even on that. And that's listen, it could easily do that, but then you're dealing with a huge, that's just even worse. That's just ridiculous, the premium on that. So in this situation, if I was going to do it at all, I'd do the stock and I'd just do like 100 shares or something like that. But again, I'm not going to do it. But I just think it's interesting because I've given you that 205 level for so long, really for the last couple weeks probably, and now all of a sudden just into earnings it tags that level today, and it's actually backed off pretty nicely. So anyway, something to watch there and just kind of monitor. Apple today. Apple's falling back after a good move on earnings yesterday. Facebook is the big mover today, up $4.50, and they reported earnings yesterday after the bell. That stock has been a monster. It's really taking other social networking stocks with it. LinkedIn is having a great day. LinkedIn is just right around this area right now, so you're dealing with a move just kind of into this little resistance right there, and we'll continue to monitor that. Other stocks in motion today, Qualcomm, and this is a profit that I took today, guys. All right, I shorted Qualcomm. I've been short for a little while. My entry was $79.50. I just covered today at $75.95. So I made about 5%, a little under 5% profit on this dump. Why did I know? Why in this case did I hold into earnings? Well, number one, the stock was at its highs, which it is like Baidu, but I've been holding it based on PPT, price pattern time factors, for a while now. And then ultimately the odds were in my favor enough where I didn't think there was much upside risk to it. In that case, I'm okay with it. Interestingly enough, I also owned, going into just before yesterday's close, ORLY. All right, ORLY I owned, and I was in the money about $4. The stock had already fallen back, and I was short this. I should say I was short this, not I didn't own it, but I was short ORLY, and I took my money off the table yesterday before they reported earnings after the bell. And the key here is to understand that you had already fallen down significantly, so it was already factoring in earnings that could be below par. And to take your money at this point was the smart move, and sure enough, that paid off as well as the stock rallied $6 on earnings. So if I stayed in it, I'd actually be out of the money right now. But I ended up taking about $4.50 on it in terms of a profit. So you can see, if you know the methodology, you really can be on point. Most amateurs would look at this and say, oh, it's weak. Someone must know the earnings are going to be bad. Wrong. It's actually the opposite. If a stock is falling into earnings, they're lowering the bar for earnings. All right, if a stock is rallying into earnings, they're raising the bar. Now, it doesn't always go by that. That's why the extra risk is there. But in general, if you have other PPT factors, you can get a good bias. And this actually worked out perfectly. So we took the profit on ORLY yesterday perfectly, and it popped today on the and we were short, so that worked out perfectly. We maxed out our gains there. And then Qualcomm I held into earnings because it was at the highs of the chart based on PPT as well, and that pulled back. We made a nice chunk of change on that. So really, this is the way you want to be as a swing trader. You want to be able to read the charts perfectly, and that's what we're doing here, folks. All right, and again, interesting today with Baidu. Pandora, I think, reports earnings after the bell. That stock is trading up about 33 cents. I have no good read on this one because it's off its highs, it's off its lows. You have a little inside bar pattern here, which could be slightly bearish, but again, there's not even close to enough information here. I'd rather be short Baidu into earnings than go long or short Pandora into earnings today. All right. What else do we have here, guys? I think that's, oh yeah, Amazon. Amazon has earnings after the bell today. Let's take a look at Amazon here. Amazon, it's up slightly. It's had a big rally. I mean, so this is an interesting case. So it's had a big rally into earnings here. I wish it was into this level up here. A lot of resistance. If it was up here, then it would be kind of a no-brainer short. I would favor slightly the downside, but this is definitely not even close to the Baidu scenario as well. As Amazon, again, I would favor the downside on this just because it's had such a rally, but I don't have enough PPT. Short term, you might get a micro topping tail there, but I don't even know if that's a good enough one to really look into. Netflix today, down again. I am short Netflix, and I love this. Breaking the 50 MA right here. We can erase that trend line there. Beautiful little break of the 50. I'd like to see a close below confirmation tomorrow, and guess where this thing's going if you get that? Right here. Pivot high, 200 MA. You'll be looking at around the 380 level on Netflix in the not-too-distant future. Okay, so that's what we have going on there. Let's go back to the SPY. Let's flip it back. Potential doji on the daily chart, but that's not as important as what's going on intraday here, as you want to see if this 50 can actually break and confirm. And right now you're just chopping here. All right, so very light volume, 33 million, just a few minutes before 2 p.m. Eastern time, and that's where we sit. All right, guys, good stuff across the board. Well done to members here making money in a pretty sideways market right now, and that's all you can ask for. And then now you want to wait for that next big move, which is on the horizon, folks. Have a great afternoon, great evening. Take care.